which is when technical problems happen, all you have to do is, take a deep breath, exhale, and roll with the punches. Say a few prayers, right, Colin?
Absolutely.
So, hey, how are you?
I'm good.
So,
I'm good.
For those who don't know me, I am Susan Rodgers, so director and writer of Still the Water, and one of the producers. Rick Gibbs and Nicole Morrison are the other producers, so shout out to them. And this handsome fella that you're seeing on your screen is Colin Price, and he is an actor from Toronto. You can see the CN Tower there in the background, I think, which is kind of cool. So Colin and I are going to just have a little chat. For those of you that have already seen the movie during the festival run, then you will recognize Colin. He played one of the oldest, he played the oldest brother in our movie Still the Water, and the oldest brother's name is Nicky. If you haven't seen the film yet, then you are in for a treat, because Colin's performance is just amazing. Very, and I think my first question is going to come from, I guess, where my train of thought is taking me, which is when I wrote Nicky, the oldest Macaulay brother, I always pictured him as a very silent guy. So I have to ask you, Colin, what appealed to you about playing such a silent guy? I mean, not a lot of dialogue. Yeah, tell me what you think.
Well, initially I didn't know how limited he was in terms of the dialogue. You had me at brothers and hockey and on an island of PEI, so I was sold at that point. But in terms of how to play that, it was a lot of internal challenges, right? I mean, in terms of the preparation and finding the mindset and the heartbeat and the rhythm of Nicky, and then kind of just following your direction, playing off of Rye, and letting the magic fall where it lay.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you did an amazing job, because I think it's probably on some level it's probably more difficult to play a character that doesn't speak a lot. But one reason I have to say, like, we cast you, for the people that are watching, wondering how this whole process happened. We watched a lot of what is known in the acting world, I guess, as self-tapes. Many, and you stood out right from the beginning as Nicky. And then I was able to go to Toronto and meet you in person. Yeah. And I also did a trip to Vancouver. So, I mean, I talked to a lot of actors, but one thing that sold you for me in the part was you had the ability to express a lot just through your eyes, I think. And I was able to see that you had, in playing Nicky, you had a lot of strength, but there was also sort of that element of vulnerability there, and it comes through in the film like really beautifully.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, it all comes down to craft at a certain extent, right? I mean, that's why I'm in class weekly, except for the last year of COVID lockdown, obviously. But, it's nice to reap some of the rewards and get the opportunity in a project like this to like really test yourself, right? And it was great to do that.
So speaking of testing yourself, like you and Rye were staying in the same motel when you were here, thanks to the Quality Inn in Summerside for their generous sponsorship, for helping us out, because it takes a community, it takes a village to make a film like this, especially a first feature on a low budget. And so, I mean, how did you guys approach each other? Because in the film, I mean, you're brothers and you had this childhood magic, but you didn't, as adults coming back together after many years, which is what happens in the film at the very beginning of the movie. Right. You're not friends. So, I mean, how do you approach each other off screen, like in the halls at the hotel or whatever?
Right. Well, me and Rye actually had worked on a previous project, albeit on different days. So we never had any scenes together or stuff like that. We knew of each other, but we never had the opportunity to work like this close in terms of filmmaking and making a movie, for instance. So it actually, I think, worked in our favor. It was more of a blessing than a curse in this instance, because as the movie progressed, I think, we were able to capitalize on, just the nuance of life and just getting actually more familiar with each other and becoming more accustomed and sharing a beer at the end of the day back at the hotel and chatting. But at the same time, Rye jumped in. He didn't have as much time as I did to prepare and stuff like that. So giving him his space to really dive into what he needed to do and be respectful was top of mind for me as well. But I think it just worked. Actually, you know, the circumstances of his path to get here and my path to get here, and then, you know, knowing of each other, but never getting the chance to meet each other and work with each other officially. It just, the chemistry was there. And I think when you watch it, you'll see that.
Yeah, and then you had, to balance everything out, you had the wonderful Spencer Graham, and hopefully Spencer's watching. Hi, Spencer, if you're watching. We love you to bits. And as one of the reviewers said, I mean, there was that lovely balance there that Spencer really brought to the three Macaulay brothers, because he was the comic relief. And I have to give Spencer credit for, you know, he really took on Noah and very sometimes kind of ad-lib some lines, you know, and just very natural. And so it really balanced that intensity, I think, between you as Nicky and Rye as Geordie.
For sure. We each individually had our personalities and characters, but I think at the end of the day, I mean, definitely at the end of the film and what have you, the Macaulays are tighter than they ever have been.
Yeah, all for one, right? Talk to me about the idea of coming all the way to PEI to work with an absolutely unknown director. Like, there must have been moments of like, what am I getting myself into?
Not at all. I mean, at the end of the day, like, we put in so much work on our craft, and so being able to go away and actually execute that, I think that is a prize in itself. But it also helps in a sense because, you know, I got to go out there. We were in the hotel for like a month and just, you know, it was live and breathe Nicky for day in and day out. And so it actually, like, again, similar to Rye, it played in our favor, I think, as opposed to being able to come home at night, sleep in your own bed and vice versa. You know, I've gotten a chance to go away for different projects in the past, Chile and Bahamas and stuff like that. And that's all just, you know, a blessing and a bonus whenever you get the opportunity to do that. So I've never been out to PEI as well. So it was beautiful. I'd definitely go back in the summertime for sure.
I noticed you said the summertime because I mean, we were cold, right? We had days of being.
We hit it up. We were out there, the end of winter, early spring. So yeah. It was still cold.
It was cold. Yeah, it was right around this time that we were getting close to wrapping, I think. Yeah, and I think we've seen like one day of sunshine here, but this year. Talk to me about the hockey, because like one thing I really respected about you, we were on hold for about a year before we were able to shoot, and you would post pictures on Instagram of playing hockey, and you know, we don't want to give away too many secrets, but at the same time, hockey was something that you did have to work on for Nicky.
For sure. Yeah. So giving me that extra year's time was again just great, because it allowed me to get more ice time. I never grew up playing hockey. It was more just like shimmy on the street with friends or the odd time hitting the rink. I was never the strongest skater or such. So luckily where I live now, there's an outdoor rink in a park close by. So I took that full year to take advantage in the wintertime to go out there. And during the day, I was literally the only one on the ice. So
nice.
Good.
Kind of a special treat, eh? And then when you got here and you were on the ice, you had some support. The local guys. We had James Harper.
James, yeah.
Who totally stepped up. What's that?
I said I'm sure he's watching, so shout out to James.
Hi, James. I mean, I live here, but I, you know, rarely run into people. But yeah, James really stepped up. He brought a bunch of players to really support and give texture and background to this film. And like, real shout out to those guys, because they helped us with all the hockey, which, you know, I'd been to a lot of hockey games, but I knew essentially what I wanted to happen. I knew what kind of interactions had to happen between Nicky and Geordie, but right. I didn't necessarily understand the mechanics of the hockey. So James and all his players stepped up. So big shout out to those guys, and shout out to the people who sat in the audience in the stands and watched, because you know, you need those people to help support you when you're acting in a feature film, and you've got to be Nicky, right? So I mean,
that was fun. whenever I asked anybody, any of those hockey guys were willing and able to, give me a tip or a hint, or I think we even used one of them for a slap shot because I couldn't get the puck up off the ice. It was so bad, but it happens. That's what they're there for. And we had a lot of fun, like in between shooting and whatnot, breaks. I mean, we were doing shimmies, and it was just really fun. It was a lot of work on those 3 days when we were on the ice, but it was one of the best times filming for sure.
I have to say, like, I had moments as a director where I was a little bit jealous of all the fun that you guys had when you weren't kind of working, because I feel like I was always working because you're always there. And even when there's a bit of a downtime in between setups or whatever, I'm always looking at my notes and trying to figure out, exactly what's happening next. You always had to be on the ball. And, like you guys would have a beer in the motel after and stuff. And I was like, oh, I wish I could go and have a beer with them. So someday I think you guys all have to come back to PEI and we'll have a big reunion. Right. And we'll just have some fun and we'll get the whole gang together, and or maybe we'll shoot something else someday. Like, who knows, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like you're building the industry out there. So, I mean, it's bound to happen.
We are, and we have so much support on PEI now. Renee Laprise, the Film PEI group, they're amazing. They're just running so many programs, and so if there are any Islanders out there who are wanting to direct feature film, or that would be my alarm. There's so much support now. There are programs that are happening. There's training that's happening, and it's a really incredible place to be. When I first came back from film school, I went to Vancouver Film School, 2008 as a mature student. There was nothing happening here then. And there was a group of us that got together and tried to make things happen. But I really believe that all things happen in their own time and when they're meant to. And definitely this feature film, Still the Water, happened when it wanted to happen and not a second before.
I remember the conversations we had talking about that.
Yeah, because he used to tweet me every once in a while. We'd talk over Twitter, and and we had conversations about that. And I think like that kind of faith takes you pretty far, I think. And I hope that the experience paid off for you and that you had a good time on PEI. I hope you found a welcoming environment and all that. More
than welcoming, probably some of the friendliest people I've ever met out there, just in terms of like every aspect.
I'm glad to hear that. Did you have lobster when you were here?
I did have lobster, I think, one night. Yes. A lot of seafood out there when I was there. I had to take advantage of it.
And then when Nicole and I went to TIFF in Toronto and had dinner with you, we enjoyed having like a really nice Italian meal. And I think we did that a couple of nights, actually, didn't we? It was fun. So every city has its benefits, I guess. I want to ask you before we wrap, and we've got a couple minutes left. Was there any part of the shoot that was uncomfortable for you, or in terms of what you're being asked to do as Nicky?
Not really. I think by the time we got around to shooting and all the conversations you and I had, I was in a good spot, physically and mentally, and with my confidence in terms of what I wanted to try and execute and deliver and bring to the film. I mean, I think the toughest scene was probably the ending, the God scene, I would say, just and not necessarily mentally, but just physically, because we shot that at the end of a 13 or 14-hour day. And then where we needed to go was probably a little bit easier because we were just so exhausted, Ryan and I, from being on the ice, and that was our third and final day, and we crammed that in. But I wouldn't say there wasn't anything that I wasn't prepared for, I guess.
And that was a tough scene. And just to give the viewers reference, and I don't want to give anything away, but you'll see a scene that takes place in a hockey rink. And we always refer to it as the God scene or the Godlight scene, because I'll tell you why. Because I went to church at St. Paul's in Summerside, Catholic church, for many years. And I can remember sitting there and looking up, and there was this, it always felt like there was an eye in the very top of the church. And to me, it was always, and it's probably meant to be, you know, God looking down or whatever. And that's what I wanted to convey in that scene. And I think the last reviewer, whose review I read, like really got that. Like he called the hockey rink a sacred place. And there's that line about that Geordie says about hockey rinks are like Catholic churches. They're the same wherever you go. And that line came from me. And when I was a single mom for many years, my son, Christopher, who's hosting us tonight, you know, we moved like 11 times in 5 years. We were all over the country. And I would go to church and the church would feel the same because, you know, the Catholic service was the same. And it was so comforting. And so that, just so you have that background, I don't know if we ever talked about that, but that is where that scene came from. So, so yeah, for those of you who haven't seen the film yet, watch for that scene. And yeah, and you guys are in for a treat because Colin Price, our actor from Toronto, is just such a wonderful Nicky. You did such a fabulous job. That vulnerability that you gave us, you know, just in your eyes, and it was magical. And it's just such a special film, and you're a big part of that. So thank you, Colin.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm glad we're at this point now and at the finish line releasing it to the world, because I know there's excitement in the journey to get there as well as filming it, but you know, also this is a big hurdle to get to as well. And so I'm excited to see the world and how they receive it.
Well, I know they're going to love you. So thank you so much. And maybe we will get to work together someday again.
Fingers crossed.
Come back to PEI and, you know, hopefully think the world will, you know, clear up and become a safer place, and you can come for a visit. We'll have a big reunion. So, all right. Thank you. And back to you, Christopher Rodgers.
That was lovely, guys. That was really nice. Good to see you guys having a bit of a reunion there. So what do we have